Is there a place that you can call home, despite all the negativity that you see in the world? Is there a place where you can be amongst your peers knowing you will not be judged? And is there a place where you can just celebrate you being you? Well, that's what we're here to talk about today on Brothaspeak Podcast, Black Gay Pride. See you in just a second. All right, guys, this is Brothaspeak Podcast coming at you to talk about Black LGBT issues and topics. And I'm with my co-host,
Darnell.
And Ricky.
And we are Brothaspeak, and this is Chris. This particular podcast is going to be considered a special podcast because we want to do something a little bit different to kind of give you guys some information regarding some of the Black pride within the area of the United States, as well as also international. We got a little treat for you, so stay tuned for that. But one of the things that we wanted to talk about was the history of the Black pride. Now, for me, I've never been to a Black pride. I'm not gonna lie.
I haven't either.
I've never been to a Black pride, and I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but I'm just saying that it's an experience that I would like to have. Yeah. It's an experience that I have never seen a Black pride in Florida.
Yeah.
There's not a Black pride.
I don't think that there is.
No. There's one in Jacksonville. I believe there's one in Jacksonville, but not in Miami, not in Fort Lauderdale, not in West Palm. And those are the areas that people, one of the bigger populated areas that, quite frankly, why don't we have a Black pride in this area?
That's a good question. So, do you think that maybe it's because of internal issues? Maybe not enough of us are out, so maybe we wouldn't gather together?
That is a good question because a lot of us are still in the DL. I'm not going to lie about that. And, it's safer to be on the DL versus criticized in public. So I'm not going to lie about that. Those are topics that a lot of people really question themselves. They may feel a safe haven in a gay area or gay predominated area. Mm-hmm. But as far as actually being out, that would pretty much put a label and say, I am gay.
Exactly. You can't hide it at that point once you participate in Pride. That's kind of what that signifies to most people who are going to see you there. Either you're supporting it because you are of the LGBT community, or because you know someone who is within the community.
Well, and as you guys know, we have one Black gay bar down here, and it doesn't even want to call itself a Black gay bar.
That's true.
What does it call itself? An interracial.
The first interracial.
Because God forbid you attach Black to anything, right?
Yeah. And the part that I couldn't understand is like, wait a minute, South Florida is interracial in general.
Exactly.
Damn near every club
it's a melting pot.
Yeah, and damn near every club that we go to is interracial. Even if it's predominantly one thing, you usually get a sprinkle of sparkle. Some type of Chris, sprinkled throughout something different, whether it's European, whether it's dark Black, whatever. You usually see somebody else of some a different ethnicity within that club.
Yeah, I wonder if it's part of it is what you guys are saying. A lot of people aren't secure with themselves or are down low, but it's also you put Black in front of any sort of event. And suddenly,
the negative connotation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You attach a negative connotation.
Yeah. You know what? I'm not gonna lie. I think that's definitely a big part of it. Yeah. I think it's a definite big
even
part
amongst
of it.
Black people.
Yeah.
Because if you remember,
we do have a lot of internalized stereotypes.
Shame. There's a lot of shame.
A lot of stuff.
Shame.
We're not gonna be as forthcoming to come out and say, I'm out of the closet.
Yeah.
Because white people, they do it all the time. There's no shame with them.
But should there be, though?
There's no shame in whiteness. But there's shame in Blackness. And I would like to...
Do you think that it's self-inflicted, though? That's my question.
Well, yes.
No. It comes from outside forces, and then eventually it gets internalized.
I think it's already internalized when you grow up. Because when you go to church, you are pretty much shamed in terms of you being, well, number one, gay. Let's put that out there.
Right.
And number one, too, I'm not going to lie and say that as a child that you knew the difference between light-skinned Black and dark-skinned Black. Mm-hmm. You knew it. I knew it growing up. If I look at my direct family, I was the darkest one. Now, of course, they have their own ways of saying that, your baby going to turn out looking like the one you angry at. And my grandfather, being a minister, was darker. He was darker than the rest of his children and my grandmother. And being the fact that my mother had me in a very early age, her and my grandfather, they were going at it. Guess who I turned out
you
looking
look
like?
Grandpa.
I look like people have put me and my grandfather and said, "Oh my God, that's your father?" No, it's my grandfather. Are you sure? They're asking me, "Am I sure I'm my own family?" I'm like, "No, that's my daddy right here." And my daddy's lighter. My sister is lighter. Matter of fact, to the point she's red. Your complexion.
Really?
But we came from the same parents. We came from the same parents.
No, it happens. It happens.
It was a lot. We come
like
with different shades.
My sister, she's like medium brown, and she had a baby with a man who was about your complexion. Her daughter's light as hell.
Exactly.
Like,
we come up with different shades.
I mean, black people we are every shade at Starbucks.
That is true. But the time that we are now embracing who we are, and that's where I'm black and I'm proud. That movement helped kind of threshold in being strong and taking pride within yourself. And if you really think about it, that was during the Afro stage, people holding up the fists and everything like that. It was also during that phase as well. So those type of movements is what we need.
And a lot of people still don't realize that a lot of the gay movements were initiated by black people, by people of color.
Thank you.
Who
happen to be LGBT, like Stonewall, for
Stonewall's
instance.
a perfect example.
Started by drag queens and transgendered people. Like they were the ones who were fighting back. Like, get the fuck off me. But there's so much erasure going on to where God, there was this Stonewall movie that came out a few months ago.
I'm glad you said that.
They decided to make the protagonist of this movie into some white kid.
White type of thing.
Really?
Yes.
The movie Stonewall, they tried to make it all white. All white was the one that we got to start. That wasn't even
How
that.
discrediting is that?
Let me tell you, I did see an article with some of the ones that were out there.
Right.
And I'll be honest with you, when I tried to click on that article, even though you saw some pictures, for some reason it didn't come out. It would the article was not to say it's a conspiracy thing or they purposely.
Well, we know how your mind works, and there's something to it. Always.
There's truth.
There's more to the story. You know it.
And of course, and I just found it very interesting that when I was actually trying to click this article, but yet I saw the faces. The faces were not white. The faces were not white who started all this. And when I started clicking it just almost like it's a refusal for me to see it. Now, that could be it could be my own computer issues. I'm
browser.
I'm just going to
update Chrome.
There you go. But I'm going to say, like a little conspiracy question. But anyway, that's something else. But it is.
I mean, it's not surprising that it would happen within the gay sphere, the same way it happens with every other sphere.
Exactly. It's taken and it's relabeled as something that it really isn't. Exactly. But the right face is put on that particular scenario, that situation, which is really interesting.
Yes.
Put the acceptable face on.
Back to the discrediting.
I honestly think that if they had actually put the faces that caused the movement on it, the movement probably wouldn't have gotten any traction. Like if they had actually publicly said,
that's an interesting theory. Which I think that probably has a lot of weight to it, that statement that you just made, honestly, because I think maybe it's seen that we wouldn't have enough, I guess, financial power to do it, first of all.
Right.
To get things moving in a direction that they actually were able to move into. So,
even now, you see how hard it is for people to acknowledge that Black Lives Matter. Yeah. It's hard for them to see the humanity in us.
Yes.
You know, like they go crazy when you kill a gorilla. You know,
oh
my God, it's the end of the world.
Isn't he dark skinned too?
I know.
Last I checked, I'm just gonna make sure that I'm,
Right. They're able to attach humanity to him, but not to black people getting murdered.
And see, and that's why I keep thinking, more prides are needed. Yes. We have to actually bring more prides.
Yes.
And I'm not saying that this is to cause division, because a lot of people will now think. And by the way, when we actually speak of a black gay pride or just black pride in general, or just being proud of who you are, automatically the opposition is from the majority, and it's usually something to say, then you're trying to divide us. Well, wait a minute. How am I dividing when we're the minorities and we don't get much recognition anyway? Exactly. Aren't you by nature dividing and not even realizing that you're dividing?
I had a conversation with a friend on Facebook, actually a coworker, so we're cool. But because I don't want to, because I don't know where we stand at this point, because I said what I said to him, and it's like, well, I don't know how you took what I said to you. But we were discussing the issue with the Alton Sterling situation.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
And when we were talking, he made a statement about he generalized all black people, and he was saying, well, maybe he shouldn't have been resisting arrest, or maybe he shouldn't have been carrying a firearm, and maybe he should have had a license for it. And he was trying to make it seem like it was Alton's fault that he was the one who was murdered. But when you look at the video, it's plain as day what happened.
He did a football tackle on him.
It's plain as day. So my response to him was, why? First of all, I labeled him as racist. And then I retracted that statement afterwards, and I said, well, maybe racist was too strong. Maybe I should have said you're judgmental, because you're saying something that you're trying to attach a stigma to this man, to this situation. It wasn't his fault. Even if he did resist arrest, that didn't give cause for them to.
How did you de-escalate it? How did you, as an officer?
There should be techniques in place for them to.
There are. It's whether or not you choose to practice.
Exactly.
And you saw what they did after he was murdered. Suddenly, his whole criminal history came out.
They brought it out.
How is that remotely relevant to the fact that he was
him
murdered?
It's a technique that you have to do to discredit.
Exactly.
You must do the discredit.
Exactly.
So in this particular
for
case,
instance, sorry to interrupt.
Go ahead.
That case with the grown man who raped a girl in California. He got off. He got 6 months or something of probation. Wrote like a letter. Like 20 minutes would ruin his life. What about the girl? Yeah. And what they did with him was they released his swim results after he was.
Oh, that's right.
Yes.
That's.
But when one of us gets murdered, they release. They find everything.
You're right about that. And matter of fact, because of the fact he was Olympics, he was the Olympic swimmer.
Potentially.
Potentially Olympic swimmer. You're right. They released his record to show us how much of a great human being this guy was. And it's kind of funny you say that, because the time that he had to spend, which by the way, is on his record for the rest of his life. Well. So I think. Yeah. I'm not sure exactly how much power his family really has to seal it.
He can't join the Olympic team and stuff like that. But he will be fine.
But guess what?
He's alive, isn't he?
It was a 55-year-old woman, older woman, who had recently been ran over by a young white guy. And actually, you know what? He turned himself in. I think this was in the state of Florida. I can pull out the article. He was only given about 6 months in jail. 6 months. And 6 months. And if you look at the pictures, very dark-skinned woman and a very young Caucasian-looking male. And this is a 2016, guys. It's nothing that's not exactly. So if anything, especially now, I think you have to have some sort of pride in saying, "Wait a minute." The media's going to paint you in one particular direction at all times. You're going to get that no matter what. But to show that, all the positivity that we have, that the media will not show purposely, by the way. I think it's a plan purposely. I'm not. It really is a witch hunt after African American men.
That's why we need the unity that.
Yes, we do.
We're trying to grow right now with the different movements and whatnot.
Yeah.
But we really need to solidify it.
Yeah.
Especially within because honestly, black LGBT people are at higher risk for being attacked, killed.
Acts of violence.
Thank you. So we really need we do need more pride events throughout the country, throughout the world, to where we show that we are a community.
Exactly.
Because they don't really see us as that.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And but you know what? I think that I do like the fact that some of the most popular pride events, especially among black and gay, are the DC Black Pride, the Beach, Los Angeles Black Pride, and Atlanta Black Pride are amongst the most popular ones. But I'm beginning to see the trend is now begin to spread a lot more across the United States.
That's a really, really good thing.
Thank you. It is a tremendously good thing. I mean, I'm now beginning to see things in Orlando, which is called, don't get me wrong, there's even subcultures within that, like the big boy, boy Black Pride. Which, let me tell you why.
He had to look at me when he said that.
I did not look. No, you're more medium. But what I'm saying is that, no, it's but I do like the fact that even within the subcultures, there's a thing of, I'm big, so what? It's not about fitting that stereotypical body.
That's the beauty of being gay. We don't fit into anybody's mold, so why shouldn't we be able to showcase who we are.
Create our own.
Exactly.
Right,
That's the beauty of America. That's what we're supposed to be able to do.
Right.
Yeah. I honestly, I see no different than when you go to church and the mothers and the sisters wear their hats in a service. You got the missionary. They got certain hats.
They have their sections.
The
they
mother,
fit in as well.
exactly. They got. I'm okay with that. You get
But
to
they're
go to
all
club.
together. They all come for one reason.
Yes.
But they know where they sit, and if you sit on that bench, they gonna let you know. Hey, you need to find somewhere else to sit. This is the motherboard. This is where the mother sits.
You got to have a whole row of hats just blocking your view.
Exactly.
But it don't matter because they all together. The house of the Lord, amen. But but I do like the fact that even in Philadelphia, you have Philly Black Pride over in those areas. You got Houston, you got DC, of course you got DC. You even have New York, which New York's been around forever, of course. But you also have Oregon. Let me stop there.
Oregon.
Portland, Oregon has a Black Pride of Portland, Oregon. I thought. I thought it was the black people.
So how many people?
Why am I ignorant in thinking that? Why am I ignorant? That's an ignorant thing. Like, why do I think of black people in Oregon?
But there has to be some truth to it because we don't really see a lot of.
You really don't. I gotta say, I'm glad somebody said, you know what?
Yeah.
Recognize us even in those areas, as small as it could be. Maybe it could be to fit a club or something. It don't matter. Exactly. Bottom line is that it should show that you are. And as well as also a few other places like Memphis, Tennessee, Columbus, Ohio. So regardless of the fact that they're now spreading about, but it all started in one place, which was Stonewall.
Yeah.
It derived from Stonewall. Yeah. And you know what? Again, I think it's very good the fact that we don't erase ourselves from that particular piece of history. Mm-hmm. We can't erase ourselves.
They have.
Right. We're putting ourselves back into the narrative.
Well, we should say that they want to.
Yeah.
We should say because the fact that we keep putting it back in their face, it was actually us who started that. And I believe that when you kind of go over to the DC one, it started off as one way. I believe it was starting off as the children, the one that actually.
I read that.
It started off the one. By the way, when it came down to the HIV and the AIDS situation, we were there just as much. It was a huge thing because when it struck with almost like thunder for all of us, and all of us had to rely on all of us. And black, and I think maybe I'm wrong, and maybe I should look at the information a little bit more. I'm not sure during a tragedy like that, when it came down to AIDS and HIV, I'm not sure that all gay people come together. Did we really come together during those moments? That's something I would like to indulge more into.
I would say that my opinion would be yes, because there are the tragedies that have been occurring now, like with Pulse, and everybody is trying to come together and support each other. So I think in any kind of tragedy, people are going to come together. Whether we stay together is a different story. But I think when it comes to
an epidemic like that,
people are going to. So you're going to naturally be afraid, and you're going to reach out to somebody. And you're going to ask for help, and they're going to ask for help. So it's kind of one of those things where everybody comes together, not purposely, but on purpose.
Yeah, and the thing about it is, I think it's kind of sad because even with these movements, it's kind of being overshadowed by so much of the negativity of it all. Especially the media. The media has a very powerful force.
Oh yeah.
And because of the fact it's just being overshadowed, it's more like you do kind of worry of whether or not these particular events, even though it's showing much of a pride and a confidence and satisfaction, saying this is who you are and be proud of it, the overshadowing, is it going to speak loud enough?
Right. Well, the media always needs a story to tell. They need heroes and villains.
Yes.
So what they basically do is they wait for somebody to fuck up.
Exactly.
That's what they do.
And that gives them their story that they need.
Right. Like recently with the Dallas shooting, I'm sure they were salivating when they found out that the guy who shot them was a black.
Exactly.
Say what you want. I still have questions on that. I mean, listen, you couldn't investigate your ass out of a paper bag, but yet in a matter of 10 damn minutes, you happen to find a dashiki and this black guy holding up.
Right.
But where is he? Oh, he's dead. We got that. We took care of that.
Right.
Wait a minute.
It seemed really
It seemed something
so
just not.
easy.
Say what you want. It just don't seem. And then how come the others are unidentified?
Right.
How come they're not concealing their faces?
Right.
Something is just not right with this. And then I think it was exclusive breaking news that a chief of police child just shot somebody recently. Chief of police. I just saw this today, exclusive.
Where?
That's the thing. It just appeared as exclusive today,
okay.
but it didn't indicate the location. But this is right underneath. While the chief, or I guess I assume he's chief of police in Dallas, was giving this long, drawn out, you should be more sympathetic towards the policeman interview with CNN with the guy that, and they got to make sure it's a black guy. You got to make sure it's a black guy who put on there. And I think he's a chief of police.
Yeah, he is in Dallas.
Yeah. So wait a minute. So you're putting his face out there, black face now.
Yeah.
Dark as me and you, to actually put out there and talking more about the police versus actually the brutality. The question that came up during this, not to deviate, was to say, hey, what would you say to some of the protesters? He said some of the most asinine things. I'm thinking to myself,
oh my God.
It's like, we put our lives on the line for you. And I'm thinking to myself, really? Is it your life on the line or our lives on the line?
I think that's really why we need more Pride events, because think about these kids. They watch the news every day, and who are they seeing murdered? People who look like
exactly
them. Every single day they're being inundated with constant attacks and murders and questions as to your character because you got murdered, and now we have to tear apart your life to find out why you were murdered, as opposed to looking at the person that murdered you.
Exactly.
That's what an investigation is.
I think
to figure out why this happened, not to break you down as you're the victim, but we're going to still break you down.
And I'm sorry to say, it's Texas. Texas has fucked up so many times, and they've actually put people, and they found certain people are not supposed to be on death row that were. Yes. Texas has made up so many bad things throughout history. This is not the first year. So many times. So that's why events like this, we need to find out overshadow, because now there's a certain level of fear of walking out your door. Yeah. And if we do not really get more events like Pride's out there, unfortunately, it will be overshadowed if we don't necessarily make more things like this occur.
This has to be our voice.
Yeah, people need to see positive representation of themselves.
Yeah. Exactly.
Like, you need to be surrounded by people who are secure and happy and celebrating being black and gay in this country, and that we're not all just being murdered. Exactly. Some of us are living very successful lives.
Exactly. And actually, I was kind of get back to the Washington D.C. It all derived from a 15-year tradition called the Children's Hour. And originally, it started off in D.C. as just simply like being a members-only type situation of everyone who was actually a part of the Children's Hour. Basically, they talked about it during Memorial Day weekend, and there was a couple of organizers there. I believe Wilmore Cook, Theodore Kirkland, as well as also Ernest Hopkins. They organized the first Black, Gay, and Lesbian Pride in May 25th, 1991. That was mainly to raise funds for HIV and AIDS. And next thing you know, and the organizers basically serving the African American community in D.C. and all the surrounding areas. Now, it started that way, but it wound up ending another. And I was very happy to see something of to see that it's something of organization amongst us can actually last for 15 years and still carry further. Yeah. Because in other words, we can really get things going if we really want to. Yeah. Civil rights movement, keep in mind, the civil rights movement, we also still had to come together. Yeah, there was mockery, but everyone had to sacrifice something for a greater cause. Yeah. Even when the movie Selma, did you guys see the movie Selma? Yeah. First off, that was probably one of the only movies I have can count on my hand that I cried. That was the only movie I just, Lord, hallelujah. I didn't know how to. It was more like just to see the progress and to see there was bickering amongst. But because of the fact that they were basically holding their own city and own state down, while the bigger movement was kind of coming into the other areas, and it was kind of like, damn, maybe this is, you're going to have I think the bickering is a natural part of it. Yeah. Towards a greater thing. because through conflict, you can actually, if everyone's mature, you can actually progress to and
in
Selma, that's what happened.
You have to have a bigger picture. It can't be about you. It can't be about somebody's ego, whatever. It has to be about the big picture.
The big
greater
picture.
Good. The ends justify the means.
And honestly, I really enjoyed the movie Selma. I thought they did an awesome production on that. It was really good. And I'm just happy to see that a lot of these Black Prides are now sprouting up everywhere and getting things, keep it going, and we're reaching out, just to kind of let everyone know, we're also reaching out to everyone across the United States who actually have the Black Pride within their towns, within their cities, so therefore everyone knows what's going on. And by the way, we're going to start calling out some of these people to kind of do little plugs, because some of the events are still up and coming, and I think it's a very good idea that we reach out to them as well. And with this, we definitely also reached out internationally, or I should say they reached out to us on Twitter, the power of the platform. Let me tell you, Twitter. And when we had Paris Black Pride reach out to us to have their first historical Black Pride event in France, I gotta honestly say, I was really surprised, and I felt honored. Yeah. And one of the interviews that we just recently conducted, which by the way is our first interview, we actually put it. We're going to be putting it on the Facebook we're putting it on the podcast coming up very soon. Was with Mr. James Davis, the founder of it. So we had a lot of good, interesting questions, a lot of things that we actually learned a little bit more about, and what's actually the tone and everything, how everything's happening in France as well. So it's very interesting to find out the similarities and the differences. So it's just good to know. Right. It's good to know what's happening in the world in terms of spreading the pride, and regardless of what, we're still pushing forward. We are still pushing forward.
I think that's the important thing, to know what's happening outside of your community.
Yeah.
To see how everybody else is living their lives, but in a different, even on the other side of the world, they're still going through some of the same things that we are, but it's important to be able to stay connected to each other, to see how things are working on the other side, to see how we can help or how they can help.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. So what we're going to do, we're going to actually swing over into the interview that we actually conducted with Mr. James Davis, again, the founder of Paris Black Pride, and we're going to let you kind of swing over. Well, I don't know what else to say. Let's just swing over into the interview and let you guys take a listen to it. Enjoy. So first, when it comes to you being the founder of Paris Black Pride, could you explain, one, your background for our audience?
Sure. Well, my name is James Davis. I studied in Paris 9 years ago. That was my first experience living in the city for an extended period of time. I also lived there recently for 2 years working. And during that time, I saw that there was a large, vibrant community of color that was LGBT that was largely underrepresented in mainstream society. And so after I left Paris, I got married. And my husband's, one of my husband's friends is the executive director of the Center for Black Equity, CBE, which coordinates Black Pride throughout the world. And I asked him, I was like, you guys don't have a Black Pride in Paris. How come? Like, you should do this. That would be a great idea. I can help you. And when I said that, he was like, okay, yeah, go for it. And so I spoke to some friends who are promoters there. They said that they would coordinate parties. I spoke to some friends who are in the art scene. They said that they would coordinate an artistic element, and so here we are.
Well, when it comes to the overall starting of the process, it sounded like to me you guys coordinated to kind of get things going. And how long did that process actually really take to really get this up and going?
So I approached CBE late 2015. So I'd say this has been going on for 8 months or so, and we're still figuring things out. But yeah, it's been I approached about hosting Paris Black Pride in late 2015. So I'd say this process has taken a good 8 months or so.
Okay. Wow, 8 months. So when it comes to the community, in terms of how were people kind of ready for it? Were people not too sure about it? What's the overall feeling of the community in terms of Paris Black Pride coming in for the first time?
In terms of the community of color, I'd say that people are very excited. Some have heard of Black Pride before, some haven't, but they are just so excited that this is coming to Paris. In terms of the overall LGBT community, there has been some negative response from certain white people who are like, oh, well, why are you all separating yourselves, and this is racist, and da-da-da-da-da. But overall, and I'm sorry, there also have been white people who have been like, this is great, how can we support this? But yeah, overall, the response has been very positive, and people are excited.
Awesome.
And I have a quote here from you, and I'll quote a portion of it. You say that France has one of Europe's largest black populations, and the Constitution emphasizes the values of liberty, equality, and fraternity. Despite this, many LGBT people of color in France experience double or triple layers of marginalization because of their race, gender, and or sexual orientation. Can you expand upon that? Like, what sort of incidents have occurred that prompted that comment?
Certainly. The history of France compared to the U.S. is very different. In France, there are no questions on the census about race because they don't believe that there's anything that exists, called race. So they will say that we don't have racism because race doesn't exist. Everyone is equal. Whereas there have been studies that show that people of Arab descent, people of African descent, are less likely to get called back for, an interview for a job. I can say personally, when I was living in France, the most racist experiences that I had were actually in the gay neighborhood in Paris, the Marais.
Wow.
I was called a dirty N-word. I was told that I was a cleaning lady. Of course, those were not normal experiences. But of all the places that it happened in Paris, it happened there. So that's my personal experience.
Wow. It's kind of funny of how they don't really consider themselves to be racist. And the similarities also are here as well, of how people don't consider themselves to be that. But at the same time, the separation, right, I believe, actually causes some sort of mixed feelings about it. Right. Almost kind of confronting something that they really don't want to confront at the same time. Not too sure about it.
Like, race is a social construct, but it's also very real.
No, absolutely. Again, my personal opinion, they really don't even have the language to address a lot of the issues that they have in France. So, it's my sincere hope that Paris Black Pride will serve as a vehicle to further discussions on racial justice and social inclusion in France going forward.
Now, what are some of the festivities that are going to be going on during the Paris Black Pride?
So we have 3 nights of parties that are already set. We have a host hotel, the Hotel Josephine, which is in the historic Pigalle neighborhood in Paris, not far from the Moulin Rouge. We are also finalizing certain events. We are hoping to have a panel discussion with various French and foreign LGBT and non-LGBT people talking about what does it mean to be LGBT Black internationally in France as well. And we're also very proud to have some relatively high profile supporters. For example, we have Audrey Pulvar. In the U.S., she might not be very well known, but she is famous in France for being the first Black newscaster. She is essentially the French equivalent of like Bryant Gumbel.
Wow.
So she is helping us and has been very active. She marched with us during the Paris Black Pride on July 2nd, or was that last weekend? So we're very happy to have her support as well.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
So when it comes to corporate sponsorship, I'm also curious about that as well. Only because here, when I'm in the U.S., I've read some previous articles discussing some of the difficulties that it was to obtain some of those big, giant corporations to be able to be a part of the events. Have you guys been experiencing some of the same things?
We haven't experienced that yet, but also we have not solicited any corporate sponsorships. That would be up to our team to decide whether or not that's something that we want or need at this point. But they're certainly welcome to reach out to us at parisblackpride@gmail.com.
I do. Awesome. Thank you so much for that. When it comes to the Black Pride in the UK partnership, I see the UK Black Pride, you guys partnered up. Can you discuss a little bit about that, please?
Certainly. So we are the second Black Pride in Europe after UK Black Pride, which it just had its 11th annual festival in London. And so a few months ago, I was like, oh my gosh, they have this UK Black Pride. Hey, you guys, we should reach out to them and see if they'd be willing to partner with us. And thankfully, UK Black Pride was very gracious enough to say that they would be our sister pride. And so we have this partnership, which I think will be very beneficial to us moving forward. I mean, since they're in their 11th year, they really know what they're doing. They have the networks that are already in place. I think they'll be able to help us kind of figure out what we want Black Pride to look like in France. And so we are just very thankful for that partnership. And we had a wonderful time in London on June 26th.
Now, 11 years is a pretty long time. Have they actually let you guys know what you're going to be up against in order to kind of make this a huge thing, or pretty much they're just kind of guide you along the way to make it very smooth as possible?
Well, I mean, we've had some conversations about it. That we will have the executive director of UK Black Pride in Paris, as well as a few other members of her team, Phil Opoku-Gima. And so I think they will basically assess where we are, and we are very open to having conversations about that, June 18th. That's the day after our Pride ends, to say, hey, this is what we think well, this is where we think you could improve, or what do you see this looking like next year? So
Awesome. Okay, that's actually very good. That guidance does make it easier, trust me, especially if you're taking on something brand new.
What do you think took so long it's only Europe's second Black Pride event?
That's a really good question. If I just had to hazard a guess, I would say I think it was natural for UK Black Pride to be the first, just because of the common language between the UK and the US. In France, like I said, race is still it's a taboo topic, even though I think people talk about it more and more. So yeah, it's not as common. It's not as common to kind of say we're going to do our own thing, especially as LGBT people of color in Europe.
Right.
Wow.
But I'm hoping that the fact that we are launching Paris Black Pride will see other Black Prides pop up on the continent as well.
I'm sure they will. There's a lot of people who want to see who's going to be the first. and we already had the UK, now you have Paris, so who's next? It becomes the next question, and I'm pretty sure there's more going to be coming along the way with that. Now, to kind of swing this a little bit closer towards some of the current issues, the underlying factor. First, I want to say, when I found out you were married, I said, wait a minute. So are they ahead of the curve when it comes to certain topics? And is marriage a part of that? So Black gay men getting married within Paris, within the UK. Was it welcome? Was it as well received? I'm not sure there's a huge difference between US and what's happening in Europe. Can you explain a little bit and how your marriage is received?
Well, sure. So in the interest of full disclosure, I'm sorry I didn't say this earlier. I am actually not resident in France now. I stopped living in France in 2014. So my husband and I are both American. We were married in Washington, D.C. last year, 2015.
Congratulations.
Thank you. But how it's received in France in particular, gay marriage became legal in France in 2013. I'm 99% sure I was living there. And actually, it was kind of surprising because they had their biggest conservative protest that they've had in like 30 years because of the marriage equality bill that the Justice Minister, who was a black woman from French Guiana, was pushing through the Parliament. And you know, they threw bananas at her, called her a monkey and everything but a child of God during this process. That being said, I think people realized that, you know, there's still a battle for hearts and minds in France, even though we think of it as very liberal. But yeah, I guess we're still figuring out how we will be received in Paris. But we are, out and proud.
Are you seeing more black gay men getting married in the area?
In France, I personally do not know. Personally, I don't know of any who are married. I know of several who have been in committed relationships for years. But I mean, marriage is a relatively new thing in France, like it is in the U.S. in a lot of areas. And there is also the issue in France for a lot of people who are of color are, say, they are immigrants from Africa or the French Caribbean departments they call the territories that they have there. And so there's still certain issues with homophobia and people not necessarily identifying as LGBT, even though, you know, that's what people might think of them as.
So would you say that the overall difference between U.S. as well as France, is there much of a difference at all between how black gay Americans here versus France? Is there much? It doesn't sound like it, but maybe you have a different take on that.
That's a good question. I would say that there's more of an out scene in the U.S. Like compared to Paris, you'll see there'll be black gay nights at certain venues, but there's not like a black gay club or a black gay restaurant that, like, you know, all the time, okay, this is our space. So yeah, there's some constant navigating and waiting, like to see, or that Saturday night when you know, okay, we can go here, or when there will be a special party. You know. So we're hoping that Paris Black Pride will grow that space.
Okay, Darnell.
You mentioned earlier that part of the event will be held at Hotel Josephine, and I'm assuming that's named after Josephine Baker?
Yes, correct. And she is one of the artists and visionaries that we are dedicating this year's Black Pride to, along with James Baldwin.
Right, and they're expatriates. And I wanted to ask, is the mood still the same that it was like after World War II, where a lot of black Americans went to Paris as sort of a safe haven? Is it still considered that?
There are thousands of Americans in France in general, and there's lots of black Americans as well who come here as expats. I'd say a lot of those who are in France love it. And I'm sure there are certain ones who do consider it, I guess, a safe haven compared to the U.S., especially just, you know, with all that's been going on recently. So, yeah.
As well as also, when you mentioned some of the things that's going on, I understand that there's going to be the number of policemen that was a part of the gay pride. There was about 1,000 police, I believe, that were monitoring the situation there for gay pride. Now, for Black Gay Pride, what is the actual security that you guys have in place for this event?
Well, we are still working with the city to figure out, I guess, what the appropriate security posture will be. As of now, we don't have like any public marches planned. So yeah, we're still just working with the city and our the venues to figure out what the appropriate security level will be.
Now, with also I've been reading recent articles regarding the Black Matters movement. I see that has also come down there. That's not correct?
Oh, to Paris. I am honestly not familiar with it in France myself.
Okay.
Well, I know that it hit the UK. They're having some protests right now in London for the two most recent deaths in the US. Mm-hmm. Do you think that there's a possibility that Black Lives Matter could reach Paris?
It's always a possibility, but I guess we'll just have to wait and see if the movement really takes root in France.
Okay, only because of the fact that when that question came up that we wanted to ask is because of the fact proactively, what in a movement like Paris Black Pride is actually in combination with Black Lives Matter, could that really cloud it to make it not necessarily the most festive event, and how could that possibly affect? That's one of the reasons why we asked that question. And is that something that you guys are? I know right now you're not necessarily looking for it to be a part of it, but if it happens to come, is there any type of any plans in place to be proactive in terms of maybe talking to the organizers to say, hey guys, maybe you want to hold off, or either, or something to how can you work together to make it work? I'm not sure. Just to kind of make the first Paris Black Pride to be as best it could possibly be.
Right. I'd have to defer to our president on that. But yeah, we'd have to just figure out if our goals really mesh with Black Lives Matter.
Where do you see Paris Black Pride 5 years from now?
5 years from now, well, I still see it existing. I see it hopefully thriving, and I hopefully see Paris Black Pride extending beyond mainland European France into, like I was saying, the overseas departments. So like Guadeloupe and Martinique in the Caribbean, specifically Guadeloupe, which people I'm sure would estimate is like 90-something% people of African descent. But it does not currently now have an LGBT organization on the island. So I'd like to see us helping in the French overseas departments and perhaps elsewhere in Francophone Africa. And perhaps we will also be in a position to be mentoring other Black Prides in Europe.
Well, I didn't pull up the statistics. I really gotta be honest with you, I didn't pull up the number of Black LGBT people who actually identify themselves as Black and gay within France. Is there a huge number, or what's the numbers on that? Do you know?
We do not have any reliable statistics at this point. Just like, unfortunately, it's very difficult to even estimate the number of Black people in France, since you can't ask the question on the census.
Right.
The estimates are in the millions for Black people, people of at least partial African descent in France. And if you've ever walked around Paris for a few minutes, then you would believe it. As for the number of LGBT people, Black LGBT people, I can't hazard a guess, but there's a lot.
How is life there? How have friends welcomed you guys?
I've always felt very comfortable in France. Love it. That's why I was so passionate about launching this event, and I'm so happy that it's come to fruition.
Awesome.
You're flying back for it? You're flying back for the event?
You're in London right now, correct?
Yeah. So I will be in Paris Thursday, July 14th, which is also France's national holiday. And Paris Black Pride will be the 15th to the 17th. So yes, we will be there.
This is going to be a wonderful thing. This is a historic event that, thank you so much for allowing us to be a part of this. So we're able to put this out on the broadcast and let as many people know about it as much as possible. Now, what we also been doing, which I explained to you previously, that we're coming up with more of an infograph, kind of showing how things starting from the U.S. and kind of slowly but surely passing, going international as well when it comes to the Black Pride movement within the U.S. as well as also within Europe as well. Is there anything that maybe you would like to make sure that we touch on Because a lot of people, when it comes to information, a lot of people say, you know what, I would like it for more information to be talked about this. Is there anything that you would also like to touch on to kind of give people an understanding of the movement going all the way over to overseas?
Well, I think the best people to talk with about that would probably be people at CDE. So like Earl Folks, who is the executive director there. I'm sure he's a fount of knowledge on the history of the Black Pride movement. And you know, he himself could speak on it, and he could also put you in contact with the people who started Black Pride in Washington, D.C., or the predecessors of Black Pride in Washington, D.C. and LA. So.
We'll definitely do that. I believe actually he did reach out to me months before, and I told him, I'm like, wait a minute, I think I spoke to Earl.
Right.
All right, so you're definitely expecting, what's the actual expectation, the number of turnout? What's the turnout expected?
You know, this is our first time doing this, so we will be happy with whomever turns out. But I think it's safe to say that we should at least have a turnout in the hundreds. People really seem to be excited about this event.
Awesome.
Can you tell us where people can find out more information?
Certainly. So you can check us out on Facebook if you just search for Paris Black Pride. Our website is parisblackpride.com. You can also check us out on Twitter at Paris Black Pride. And you can also email us at parisblackpride@gmail.com.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate it. And like I said, we're going to be putting this on the broadcast. We want people to be able to know the movement as much as possible within the U.S. as also overseas. So is there any questions you want to ask us?
No.
It's all right. We're not that interesting.
I know.
But, well, although I am curious about your podcast, like how long have you all been doing this? I mean, well, I know this is your first Skype interview, but how long have you all been doing these interviews?
Well, to tell you the truth, you are our first interview. But we have done several podcasts before. Okay. And so we already have several posted on already. You can check us out on iTunes, as well as also Stitcher, TuneIn, SoundCloud, you can, as well as also Google and Mozilla and every place else. So we have a good wide distribution. Okay. But as far as being our first interview, when you reached out to us on Twitter, it kind of said, wait a minute. It makes total sense for us to actually make sure that we put out as much information as possible regarding the Black LGBT movement, as well as also, hey, why not make him our first interview? So we decided to make you our very first interview. So again, thanks for that. So, but I definitely want to kind of conclude the interview with saying thank you again. Look out for our infographic that we have coming soon for you to kind of again show the progression of the movement, and kind of check us out on the podcast, and to kind of hopefully we did justice with this interview.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Thank you so much for your time, and we hope to see you in Paris next year.
Thank you so much.